It is Monday, May 13th, and the Splash Zone is back in your life. I'm Matt Modai, and I have 3 NBA player props for you guys to lock in for tomorrow's NBA betting slate. So I'm getting this video out to you guys early, getting us some early bangers to lock in for tomorrow's NBA betting slate. We have Game 5 for both of the Pacers Knicks and the Timberwolves Nuggets series tomorrow. Both of those series are also tied 2-2, so should be pretty awesome games that we have on tap. Of course, before I can give you picks for those games, I got to do a recap. So I'm recording this before the games on Monday night have finished, so I do not have a Monday recap to give you guys. I can recap the weekend for you, which is a pretty good weekend, right? Not the worst that I've ever had, not the best that I've ever had either. I was 8-4-1 on the weekend, and I'm giving you Friday, Saturday, and Sunday's picks. So I went 2-2-1 on Friday, and then went 2-1 on both Saturday and Sunday. And if you're wondering about that one play that got refunded, it was Pacers -5 for Game 3. They won by exactly 5. So 8-4-1 over the weekend, up 1.82 units, up 1.82 units over the weekend. It's pretty good. Not going to complain about that. On the entire season, that now brings our profit. We are up 113.91 units, which is obviously an incredible number. And then for the playoffs specifically, we are up 5.83 units. So admittedly, the success in the playoffs haven't quite been as good as the success in the regular season, but still up a little bit below 6 units on the playoffs is nothing I'm going to complain about. Hey, we're able to watch the NBA playoffs. We're able to bet on the NBA playoffs and make some money doing so. So nothing wrong with that. Before I get into the bangers for tomorrow, real quick, if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are not already. And then, of course, if you could like the video and comment as well, I would appreciate that. And then the last thing I'll say before I get into the bangers is that I do have a dub club. For those of you interested, it's where I send all my plays out early. It's only $5 a month, and it does get everything sent directly to your phone. So for those of you that don't have time to watch the videos, don't care about the videos, or you just want to lock stuff in before the odds change, I always would recommend the dub club. You know, by the time I record a video, edit it, and post and all that stuff, sometimes the odds change. But if you're in the dub club, you're able to combat that. So the very, very first thing I do, as soon as I decide what a play is I send it out to my dub club. So you're able to lock in bangers early and all that stuff. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description of the video. If you'd rather just wait and get everything for free on YouTube and Twitter, I'm totally cool with that. I just like to give people the option. But that's enough of that. Let's get into tomorrow's bangers. So the first play that we're locking in here is in the Pacers versus Knicks game, and I'm taking Donte DiVincenzo over 23.5 points plus 110 odds at Bet365. So if you want to be a little bit safer, you can take this to go over 22.5 for -120 odds. At that point, I thought getting plus 110 was the better value, so that's what I'm officially going to go with. But if you want to be a little bit safer, you can take the over 22.5 number. Regardless, what we're doing with this play, the ultimate fade of recent results. Donte DiVincenzo was phenomenal in games 1 and 3, was absolutely incredible, scoring 25, 28, 35 points in games 1 and 3. Obviously, the 35 points, that's a little bit of an outlier. But everything came to crap for the Knicks in Game 4, and that included Donte DiVincenzo. He only scored 7 points in Game 4. Now, if you look at that game, that was essentially Murphy's Law for the Knicks, Murphy's Law for the Knicks, meaning anything that can go wrong did go wrong. Their entire team couldn't shoot. It was not just DiVincenzo. And the Pacers' entire team couldn't miss. Whether you want to say that the heavy minutes on the Knicks came up, finally came back to bite them, and that's why they had such a tough game. That's why they struggled. Regardless of whether you want to say the Knicks couldn't shoot, the Pacers couldn't miss, and that was that. The game was a complete blowout from the jump. So I think that there's a lot of options if you want to fade recent results from the Knicks in Game 3. I decided to go with Donte DiVincenzo. Obviously, Brunson's incredible. I'm not going to take anything away from him. I also don't think he's healthy. Multiple times we've seen him come up limping since he hurt his foot in Game 2. And Donte DiVincenzo, he's been, like I said, phenomenal in this series. He played 43 minutes in games 1 through 3, finally got a little bit of rest in Game 4, as did the entire Knicks. So even if you think that being tired did come back to bite them, presumably they should be significantly more well-rested for Game 5, and they're heading back home as well. And as I mentioned, this play for DiVincenzo, the ultimate fade of recent results. He shot 3 of 13 in Game 4. Just a horrible shooting performance from DiVincenzo, but he shot phenomenally in games 1 through 3. So it only made sense that eventually the other side had to drop for DiVincenzo. There's no way he was going to be able to keep up the shooting splits that he had in games 1 through 3. There's also no way it's going to continue to be as bad as it was in Game 4. Now is the time to buy back in. I get that the Pacers defense, they looked amazing in game 4. I still think that not that I think, I'm still not scared off of their defense. We've seen their defense look more like the regular season unit that we saw in these playoffs, aside from game 4. So one good game when the Knicks couldn't make anything doesn't scare me off. And really what it comes down to are the attempts. He was 10 of 17 in game 1. He was 10 of 20 in game 2, 12 of 26 in game 3. OG Anunoby is still going to be out in game 5, so I'm expecting him to get up another 20 plus shot attempts in this one. If he can make 4 3-pointers, that would help us. He doesn't even need it the way he's attacking the basket. Regardless, I think this is a phenomenal look on Dante DiVincenzo. That's our first play. Next up, we are heading to the Timberwolves versus Nuggets, and I'm taking Karl Anthony Towns over 18.5 points, minus 108 odds at DraftKings. Another buy low opportunity here, this time back in Karl Anthony Towns to go over 18.5 points. This series has been classic playoff cat, exactly what we're used to seeing in the playoffs with Karl Anthony Towns. He has very high highs, very low lows. He was pretty good in games 1 and 2, especially game 2. But in game 1, he scored 20 points, obviously going over. Game 2, he scored 27 points, obviously going over. And then that dropped off in games 3 and 4. He scored 14 points and 13 points in games 3 and 4. This is exactly in line from what we've seen from Karl Anthony Towns in the playoffs before. He's had games where he's looked amazing. He's also had games where he's looked terrible. After a pretty brutal showing, especially in game 4, kind of similar to DiVincenzo, now is the time to buy back in on Karl Anthony Towns. The unfortunate reality is this is something that we've seen from him plenty before. In last year's playoff series against the Nuggets, it was a 5-game series. Cat went under in games 1 and 2, and he looked pretty pathetic in games 1 and 2 as well. Then you look at games 3 through 5, he went over in 2 of those 3, scoring 27, 17, and 26 points in those 3 games. So even the one game he went under, one basket away from cashing the over. And it's kind of been the same thing in this year's playoffs as well. He went over in game 1 against the Suns, then he went under in games 2 and 3. Then he went over in 3 straight games after going under for 2 straight games. He went over in game 4 against the Suns, then went over in games 1 and 2 of this series, as I previously mentioned. As bad as he can look in the playoffs sometimes, he has shown the ability to bounce back. In last game, what I love are the 18 attempts that he put up, right? That's a pretty healthy number for someone we need to score 19 or more points. I'm betting that those attempts are going to continue. I'm also betting that he's going to shoot better than he shot in game 4, only making 5 of those 18 attempts. And it's a great buy low opportunity. His over-under last game was 21.5. Now it's 3 full points lower, and we're not drinking that much juice. We're getting it at minus 108. I think that is way too much of an overreaction after a game in which we saw Anthony Edwards put up 44 points. Anthony Edwards could do that again, but 19 points from Karl Anthony Towns, I think it's a great play when you consider how things have gone. So that's our second one. Last up, third and final pick of the video, Michael Porter Jr. over 4.5 first quarter points, plus 100 odds at DraftKings. Here we go, back to one of the first quarter kings, Michael Porter Jr. He's cashed this for us both times that we've taken him in this playoff series. We took him in games 1 and 3. He scored 9 and 8 points in those 2 games. And then he missed it in games 2 and 4, which was very nice of him because we didn't have him in those games. So no harm, no foul there. And it was a weird game 4 in the first quarter for Michael Porter Jr. He only took 1 attempt, which is by far the lowest of his attempts in the first quarter in these entire playoffs. And he played the fewest minutes that he's played since game 1 of the Lakers series, right? He played fewer than 9 minutes, which is an outlier for him because normally he plays the whole first quarter and at least plays 10 plus minutes. So just a weird game for Michael Porter Jr. I will gladly bet that that is not going to continue 2 games in a row. In the previous first quarter that Michael Porter Jr. went over in game 3, he played all 12 minutes. That's normal for him. He only attempted 5 shots. He made 2. And he got to the line 4 times as well. Now, and I will admit that, those 4 free throw attempts in game 3, that was a little bit of an outlier. But he would have cashed it even if he didn't get to the line at all. As I mentioned, he made 2 field goals. He made 1 3-pointer, 1 2-pointer. That adds up to 5 points. That adds up to a cash. And for the last 2 years, Michael Porter Jr. has been an incredibly fast starter for the Nuggets. If you look at it the entire season this year, he cashed this in 64% of the games. If you include all of the last 2 seasons combined, he cashed it in 63% of the games. Now, my logic for this of why Michael Porter Jr. starts faster than he's able to keep up for the rest of the game in quarters 2 through 4. Is this is my personal logic here, my personal guess. This is not based on any sources or anything like that, but my guess is that they run more action for him in the first quarter because they want to keep him engaged on the defensive end. I'll give Michael Porter Jr. credit. He's turned himself into a pretty good team defender. He's able to deal with switches and stuff and make sure that he's on a string, getting out to all the shooters and stuff, making sure that he's always on his guy. And that has not always been the case, right? Coming out of the draft, Michael Porter Jr. was known as a me-first guy who doesn't care at all about defense, who just cares about getting his points specifically. So my guess is that they run more action for him in the first quarter to keep him engaged, to make sure that he's focused and buying in on the defensive end. So they do that by giving him a bunch of shots in the first quarter. We see this a lot with defensive-minded centers having plays run for them a lot to start the game, right? Like Kendrick Perkins would always have the first play run for him. They asked the coach about that, and he said it's to keep him engaged on defense, right? As I mentioned, it's been a pretty long sample size, a massive sample size of MPJ cashing this over first quarter prop for us. So I'll gladly go back to it after him missing in game 4. And that's all we got for the 3 main bangers. I do have an underdog entry for you guys as well. It's 2 of the plays that you already saw me take here. It's Karl-Anthony Towns over 18.5 points. It's Michael Porter Jr. over 4.5 first quarter points. But I'm also adding Anthony Edwards over 5.5 rebounds as well. Honestly, the Dante DiVincenzo play wasn't really worth it to take on underdog because, plus 110 odds doesn't really translate over to underdog. So I decided to just replace it with the Anthony Edwards play, which is really good on Underdog Fantasy. Most of the sports books heavily favor him going over this number. So getting it on Underdog, which is a fixed payout system, is pretty good value. So you see the 3 legs that we have on here. I put a quarter unit on all of my Underdog entries. If you're interested in signing up, just check out the link in the description of the video, as well as you see it pop up on the screen here as well. If you don't have it, it does help me out if you sign up using my link. And there are reasons to sign up for Underdog, right? The fixed payout system on their entries does make it so you can find some value just looking for plays that the sports books favor. But regardless, that's all we got for this video of 3 bangers plus 1 Underdog entry for you guys to lock in. Remember to like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the Dub Club if you're interested in getting everything sent to you for $5 a month. Appreciate everybody for watching, and have a good one.